where when the Chofetz Chaim was older, all day when they would have their meetings, the Gedolei Torah, they would travel to Radin. So Rav Chaim Ozer would travel from Vilna to Radin, and that's where they would meet, at the Chofetz Chaim's house. So the Chofetz Chaim held that Rav Chaim Ozer had a din of Nasi. He was the prince of Klal Yisrael. So Nasi, you have an obligation to honor him, even though Chofetz Chaim was maybe 25 years older than Rav Chaim Ozer. But he held, because of who he was, so the moment he would come into his house, immediately he had a bed prepared, had a pair of slippers, cup of tea, and immediately, right away he would start. So Rav Chaim Ozer once said to the Chofetz Chaim's son, he says, "Your father, he's unstoppable. It reaches a point where you can't deal with it. You can't take it after a while. He's so on top of you in terms of what you have to do, and it's like there wasn't a moment he ever stopped the Chofetz Chaim. And the Chofetz Chaim was the Chofetz Chaim. Chofetz Chaim was the Chassid. What he did, he had a level. It's not to be believed his level. We don't even relate to what the Chofetz Chaim was, although he didn't live that long ago, relatively speaking. This is what Chaim Oz himself said, in terms of what the Chofetz Chaim was. We have no idea of genius of Chaim Oz, what he was. Chaim Oz was, besides having a photographic memory, he never forget anything in his life. When he was 13 years old, he learned with much older people. They were maybe twice, 3 times his age. And he came to his bar mitzvah. In those years, you were never at home for your bar mitzvah. So he's learning in this group with this group of Talmidei Chachamim, very advanced. And he's a child, basically. He's just bar mitzvah. So they say, jokingly, so what are you going to say for a bar mitzvah drasha? He says, something, I'll take the Sefer Ketzos HaChoshen. I'll start from page 1. I'll go through the whole Sefer. And I'll tell you all my points in the Sefer. This is from memory. And he starts at the beginning, goes through a third. And he speaks for about 8-10 hours. Levels of chidushim to people that can't even keep up. He's 13 years old. People are 2-3 times his age. We're talking about advanced Talmidei Chachamim. Now you understand why the Chofetz Chaim held he was the Nasi of Klal Yisrael. So when he was already in the 60s, or close to 70 years old, who was he? We're talking about it's beyond our understanding of his dimension of person, what Rav Chaim Ozer was. And as a human being, his level of sensitivity to needs of Klal Yisrael is not to be believed. Helping the poor and being concerned for them and everything that had to do with us. There was a story. Before the war, there was a person who was sent to Europe by the Joint. His name was Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith was a Jew, secular Jew. And he had to meet Rav Chaim Ozer, because Rav Chaim Ozer was the head of Vadat Zola. Even before the war, there were issues. And this Dr. Smith, whose name was really Schmidt, he never met such a person in his life. Never met such a person in his life. And afterwards he says to me, he says to the rabbi, he says, "What could I do for you?" He says, I have a young girl who works in the house. She's an orphan. I would like you should send her a pair of shoes. That was like over the top. I'm here. The man carries all Klal Yisrael on the shoulders. He's the leading Torah sage. He's concerned about a pair of shoes for this orphan girl who works in his house. He became a full Baal Tshuva. When he came back, immediately he investigated. He was a brilliant man. He was at Harvard, the PhD, whatever it is. Became a full Baal Tshuva, and he passed away in the 50s. What? He lived in Brownsville. No, you remember him? No, I'm only joking. Okay. 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 Left off Ches, page 27, Halacha Ches. Now this is important. This is the kavanah. When you put on your tzitzis, what should you have in mind? Of course, you should have in mind mitzvahs kavanah. You have in mind to do the mitzvah of tzitzis. Tzitzis or talis, either one. It's the same mitzvah. Okay, 4-corner garment. You're supposed to put tzitzis. Yichavin lebisatvo. You should have in mind when you wrap yourself, Shetzivon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kadei Sheniskar Kol Mitzosav Lasosa. Right? We say, Risa Mosa was Chartim, es Kol Mitzvos Hashem Elokechem. Right? When we look at the tzitzis, you remember also, tzitzis, in their essence, they represent all mitzvahs. So you have in mind that you're putting them on, Kadei Sheniskar Kol Mitzosav. I mean, the mitzvah is a Risa Mosa. There's a separate mitzvah besides wearing tzitzis. Then when you come to that, the third paragraph, you should look at your tzitzis. You look at the tzitzis, you fill the mitzvah essay, according to some Rishonim, of Risimosam. There's a mitzvah to look at your tzitzis. So you're holding your tzitzis in your hand, you should look at them. Some people, they have a custom, they touch them to their eyes. There's why? Because it's cited in some Sforim. There's a sefer years ago, every observant home had it. It was called Taimim Menhogim. Like every home had a kitzur Shulchan Aruch. So every home time Minhagim, so you look there and they give reasons why, Minhagim, why you do many things. It's a school of never to become blind. That if you take the tzitz, put it to your, because Yisimo, so you put it to your eyes, it's a school in terms of eyesight. That's why people put it to their eyes for that reason. Okay, Yutes, Ichav Bisatvo, Zel Mulvara Kavon Shetzor Chav Bilavisha, Lekam Mitzvah Tzitzis. Besides what one has to have in mind, when you put it on, that you have in mind to do the mitzvah. Kosvabach, Shekein Hadim B'Tfilin, B'Sukkah, right? When you sit in the sukkah, what do you have in mind for the Anei HaKavod? As Morgan Avram says, you're supposed to be Anei HaKavod. Tfilin, the Mechaber later will say, there's a kavanah, you have to be, besides the mitzvah Tfilin, you have in mind what's the kavanah we put on the Shal Yad? That you're dedicating that your heart to Hashem. And Zeichel Tzis Mitzrayim. Shal Rosh, you're dedicating your mind to Hashem, your intellect to Hashem. That's in addition to the kavanah for the sake of the mitzvah. He says, although regarding all mitzvahs, even if you have no kavanah, it's sufficient just to have in mind, I'm doing the mitzvah because Hashem commanded me to do the mitzvah. So you don't have to have more than that. So what's unique about these mitzvahs? Tzitzis, tefillin, and sukkah. Hanach, shiny. These mitzvahs are different. The tzitzis ksiv l'mantiskru. It says explicitly, l'mantiskru, that you should remember all my mitzvahs. So the Torah goes out of its way. Tefillin l'mantia Torah Hashem beficho. That the Torah should be in your mouth, even though the Gemara learns from there that the hide of tefillin, the leather, has come from a kosher species. That's the Gemara in Shabbos learns from this pasuk. L'mantia Torah Hashem beficho. It has to be something from an edible species. Even if the animal was killed, but as long as the species is a species you could eat from, that's sufficient. Right? All your generations know keep sukkos, so shafti is bnei Yisrael. So because the Torah goes out of its way to give the reason, that's why in addition to the basic kavanah that you're doing for the sake of the mitzvah, you should have in mind these additional reasons. But this is only to do it on the optimum level. To do the mitzvah in the most complete way. Al b'di'evet afim lo kivei b'chol elu. Rak l'kaim mitzvah says aseh yotzo. If only have one has in mind for the sake of the mitzvah, that's sufficient. Yotze. V'achar motzos pri megodim simcha fei. He located in pri megodim shkosef kain. Chem mashbel was tomid birag rosh afilo b'tzitzis kavon likuva. That even if one does not have in mind for the mitzvahs, just to do the mitzvah tzitzis, that's sufficient. You fulfill the mitzvah, fully fulfill the mitzvah. We're going to have later, regarding mitzvah shichas kavanah, what about if you don't even have kavanah for the sake of the mitzvah? It's not simple. It's not simple that you yotze the mitzvah because it's never resolved. This question, whether mitzvah shichas kavanah, mitzvah shichas kavanah, in the Gemara, it's never resolved. So therefore, it's a safek d'oraisa. So if it's a safek d'oraisa l'chumra. So therefore, let's say you put on your tefillin, you didn't have it in mind. So you should have, while you're wearing your tefillin, you should have in mind that, because every moment you fulfill the mitzvah of tefillin, when you wear the tefillin, you should have in mind that you're doing it for the sake of the mitzvah. You didn't have in mind when you put your talis on, so you just hold it tzitzis, and you have in mind that I'm fulfilling the mitzvah, because it's every moment you're fulfilling another mitzvah. So say, you're doing it for the sake of the mitzvah. See, Kriya Shema, you can't do that. Once you say Kriya Shema, if you didn't have in mind, see, really there, you should repeat the Kriya Shema again, and have in mind you're doing for the sake of the mitzvah.
Could have another intent, because we learn in
No, neutral.
No, but I'm saying, but you could. So when you put it on without kavanah, when you're saying kriyash without kavanah, you don't know why you're saying it.
You're talking like a lamdan. You're talking like a lamdan. If you learn the sugya, mitzvah shichas kavana, even if the alternative is nothing, you take a lulav on the first day sukkahs. What is it? It's a palm branch. It has no value. It's either mitzvah or nothing. Yet, there's an opinion, if you don't have kavana, you're not yotzei the mitzvah. You're not yotzei the mitzvah. You have to have, it has to be infused, you're doing it for the sake of the mitzvah. If not, it's an ordinary act. So let's say you took the lulav, and you didn't have kavanah. You weren't thinking. So what do? You should take it without a bracha. Bracha you're not able to say, some brachas lokil. But if you're able to take the lulav again, you should take it again. Because it's questionable whether you were yotzei. What? Okay, no, you don't have to. It's better, but even if you're holding it, you have a mind. You're holding it, you have a mind. The tilas lulav is holding the lulav. That's what it is. It's holding the four species. You're holding it. It's interesting. There was a book written on the Klosenberger Rebbe. He was in the death march. And the Nazis, Yimach Shmum, they were walking for a day and a half. They would not allow them to stop to drink. They passed lakes, they passed rivers, as much as they were literally parched to the point where they would actually passing out. And if they would fall, they would shoot them on this. They would kill them on the spot. They would shoot them. They would not allow them to drink. Okay. Finally, one night they come to a field, and all the people are in the field. They're sitting on the field. They sit down on the ground. As they sit on the ground, water starts. The ground was so saturated with water. Water starts oozing up out of the ground. They were ecstatic. So he went and he took his hands, the Klosenberger Rebbe, and he pushed his hands down in the, to gather the water, cup his hands, and he drank the water. And he was so thirsty, he said the word shako very quickly, without really having kavanah, saying it properly. For the rest of his life, he regretted that moment. Here he had the opportunity to thank Hashem for providing with water. And he should go, so reflexively, without even thinking, just to say the bracha quickly and drink the water. Okay? I mean, he said the bracha, but in terms of the way he should have said the bracha, he missed a lifetime's opportunity. That's what he regretted all his life. Yeah.
So what is the kavanah when it's to help us? Tzitzis.
The purpose of the mitzvah is to remember all the mitzvahs. Because to remember all the mitzvahs. Because as it says, uschartem, when you see that tzitzis, you mantiskru, as mitzvosai, to remember the mitzvahs. That's if everyone's mentioned. Yeah, besides. Yeah. But besides, I once mentioned the Chofetz Chaim says that if a person ever feels he's slipping regarding any mitzvah, and you studied the mitzvah at one time, by looking at your tzitzis, there's a special skula, as it says, urisimos uschartem. Schart doesn't mean just you remember the fact. It gives you a sense of the mitzvah, and it gives you that internal sense of value that you'll do the mitzvah. Or you won't do the Avera. You won't do the Avera. Good.
Allah, in the third paragraph, we end with Hashem Elokeichem Emes. But we take the Emes from the following paragraph. Honestly, so why doesn't the pasuk say Hashem Elokeichem Emes?
Emes is not part of the pasuk. We only say it to complete to make a taryag, to have 613 words. Actually, Ramach, to make it Ramach, 248. So therefore we need the additional 3, because the words in the Kriya Shema are only 245.
It's a grammatical or liturgical...
Right, that's the only reason.
But you would think that statement, Hashem Elokeichem Emes...
Hashem Elokeichem. It's like saying, a person says, this is your father, and it's true. I know it's my father.
I mean, like there's a doubt.
No, so you're only saying...
Without the emes, it's like without a doubt. If what you just said.
You don't. You're only saying the emes only, again, to create the number. The pasuk doesn't say Hashem Elokeichem emes.
Right.
It says Hashem Elokeichem.
You would think it should.
It's not necessary. Now, this is important. Kodem sheyivorech ya'ayim b'chuti hatzitzis im hem ksherim. before we say the bracha, you have to check your tzitzis. You have to look at the strings to make sure they're all there. Kadesh yavorech levatolo. It should not be a bracha levatolo. Okay? And we'll see. There's not enough time today. When you check, it's not only the string. You have to check where the strings are attached to the corner. See, by the strings, even if you have a string which is totally torn off at the knot, it's valid. Of course, you have to have four strings. It's 4 strings which are double. So even if one is totally torn off at the knot, what is it? It's only half the string is missing. You have the other half. So it's not a problem. If you have 2 missing, 2 strings, then it depends. We'll see. It depends. What does it depend upon? If when you make your tzitzis, you always make sure that one side is always on the same side and the other side's on the other side. So even if all 4 are torn off, you have the other halves. But what about sometimes if you ever made tzitzis, it's not so simple to keep always the same side on the side. So sometimes if you have 2 strings torn off, it's possible it's the same string. So you have a whole string missing, torn off at the knot. So that would be possible.
On the same side, or?
No. Even though they're on 2 sides, it may eventually, you may have taken the same string and both the same strings on the same side.
I see.
So therefore, if you have a person who really is a professional, makes it, knows how to do it, it's always half the string is on one side, half is on the other side. So even if all 4 strings are torn off on the same side, you have the other 4. So you have half of. But if you're not sure, it's a suffix. Correct. But then it depends how much is left. But if it's torn at the corner, what about where the string is attached at the corner? If any of the strings are torn there, then you have a problem. So when you check your tzitzis, it's not only checking the strings, you have to check the attachment to the corner. Because if one of those strings are torn, it's possible. Because all the strings have to be inserted, in the corner of the garment. So if the string is torn, it's not. That string is missing, it's not attached. We will see.